Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women Veterans Alliance member webinar. One of the great benefits of being a member of Women Veterans Alliance. I'm Melissa Washington, the CEO and founder of Women Veterans Alliance. And today, I'm very happy to have Angela Cody-Rouget. She's also known as, if you don't know her by that name, you may know her as Major Mom. And she's going to tell you a little bit about herself and how she started a business called Major Organizers. But today, she's going to be talking a lot about how clutter clogs your cash flow, and more specifically on business organizing. And I'm a business owner, so I'm very much looking forward to this. And Angela, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're joining us. Again, my name is Angela Cody-Rouget. I'm also known as Major Mom. And I started a home organizing business over 15 years ago. I was a major in the United States Air Force, and my nickname became Major Mom after having my first child. And then after having my second child, I decided that military life and motherhood were no longer compatible for the life I was starting to want, and the entrepreneurial spirit that had been brewing up in me for some time. So I like to say that my military experience, like many of you, well prepared you for entrepreneurship. But you can go to my website, majormom.biz or majororganizers.com, and read all about my bio and things like that. I want to get started right away with some statistics that many of you may be painfully aware of, or some of you may have heard this for the first time. Anyone who's heard me speak always hears me give this one. The average American spends 55 minutes a day looking for things we know we own but can't find. Now, that's the average American. If you're above average, then you might spend more than an hour a day looking for things. And I'm going to apply this stat today to your home office or your business office, maybe you have an office off-site. And I have this 14-page document that literally has 100 or more statistics on disorganization and its impact on the home and the office or the business. And so I'm going to read a couple of them to you because this is 14 pages of really, really small numbers in print. But I thought you would think this was fascinating. Worker productivity decreases by 20 to 40% every time they multitask or task switch. And that was the University of Michigan did that study. And we've really talked about that a lot in running an office, running a business. And when you are a solopreneur or a solo practitioner with no help, you have to wear all the hats. So you might be thinking, well, how in the world am I going to not be able to multitask and switch hats? I'm going to share some time management tips and time block tips with you later on how you can try to not multitask nearly as much. Another disturbing stat that I'll read to you is it costs $120 in labor to track down misplaced documents or $250 in labor to recreate it. That was a study done by North Carolina's school. A lot of universities studying all the chaos and clutter in the business environment. So maybe you don't have a large corporation or a small business more past yourself, or maybe one assistant. So you're not maybe relating to the $120 and the $250, but that's just because we're not paying ourselves that money to recreate the document. So it's still a cost. It's just not being captured. So any stat that I share with you today or anything I share with you, just remember, just because we aren't paying ourselves to recreate that document doesn't mean that we didn't have a cost associated with it. Most of the time for us as business owners, it's an opportunity cost. This is another interesting one. 400 is the number of hours per year the average employee spends searching for a paper document. 400 hours per year. So if you have a business, you don't have good systems, you don't have good organization, there's so many stats in this document about the time and the waste and the opportunity. Sales go down the tube, things like that. And the last one I'll share with you, because I have like 5 others circled, but these are so good. This this is about information overload and how we business owners can and almost gather too much information before we take action on something. And it says a weekly edition of the New York Times contains more information than the average person was likely to come across in the 17th century. So we are in information overload, and that is a huge factor to our clutter, our cash flow being clogged. So many American businesses of all sizes are plagued by disorganization and clutter. People like to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And the reality is that disorganized business owners start losing trust. They start losing the trust of their clients, losing the trust of their employees. You may have even said it about a former employer of yours or an employee or a coworker, something like, my goodness, they're so disorganized. They waste so much of our time because we're always reinventing the wheel or recreating documents. So your personal brand, the brand of your business, the number of dollars in your bank account are directly impacted by the level of chaos and clutter in your office. That's what this presentation about. Of course, there's other things that impact our cash flow. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has terribly impacted all of us. But today we're going to focus on the things we can control. And for some of you, you may actually believe that you have no way of creating organization. But I'm going to give you some helpful hints and tips, and you always have access to me via this network, or you can call me quickly and maybe we can brainstorm something. I have some hour power sessions for a very low rate, and I created that for a lot of my veteran people. For $48, we can talk through a problem for 1 hour, and that is something that I created a while back because some people just need a breakthrough. They don't need me to hire me to help them the entire way through their office. So the major impacts of clutter, they impact all areas of your business, your personal brand, like I said, but specifically on your time, your money, your health, your safety, and your energy. So those are major impacts. So we're not going to go into them too much, but I want to highlight some of them in case you may be in denial. So when you hear these and they are impacting you, please make note that this is impacting, and then try to calculate the cost of that impact. So first, time. Every second of our time can be better spent when we're aware of how we are actually spending it. So one major impact of cluttered calendars and that have all kinds of things on them. Many of us business owners clutter our calendars with networking events after networking events after networking events, which now is Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, and we aren't taking the time to work on the business or do client development because we're always gathering information. So cluttered calendars can happen very easily when you have multiple calendars. So if you don't have a calendar system, what we hear from a lot of our clients is, my time is really impacted. I miss meetings. I forgot to pick my kids up from school. I forgot about a new client appointment. I mean, wow, that will definitely affect your cash flow. And so a lot of business owners say, I arrive late to events, not that they're necessarily the speaker to the event. I mean, if I didn't show up for this event, that would be awful unless something really catastrophic had happened. But it is always a fear for me to get to where I'm supposed to be, especially if I'm the speaker, very, very early, because things do happen with cars and accidents and things like that. So this time impact creates I think what I'd like to say is it creates a cash flow clog because we have not used our time correctly. Another thing is what wastes a lot of our time, which impacts our business and ability to make money, is we don't have any automation. We do everything manually. And this could be something as simple as you use an Excel spreadsheet to manage your business versus maybe just forking up the $20 a month for QuickBooks Online and having a small business edition. And the great thing about QuickBooks Online, and I don't get any money for saying this, but with one click of a button, you have your profit and loss statement. You can see all your revenues. You can see all of your expenses, and you can reformat things. You can also invoice out of QuickBooks and do all kinds of wonderful things. So this manually using Excel unfortunately also ends up where we have duplication of effort. We're, doing things twice. And a good way to explain that is if you have a paper calendar, when we say duplication of effort is a waste of time, at this point in life, you have to rewrite a lot of things every year. Your paper calendar, you have to rewrite maybe something simple like birthdays, but other things like, oh, I had a speaking engagement for that day that got booked last year. So you're always moving things and recopying things and recopying things. God forbid you lose your planner like many of our clients, where all of that information and data is gone. And the time spent trying to recreate a paper calendar is exhausting. And I can't say I know anybody that just quit and closed their business over it, but I can definitely tell you that they lost business because of it, because they couldn't show up to client appointments because they had a paper management or they had a paper calendar. So today isn't about browbeating you that you have a paper calendar, but it is saying that sometimes that duplication of effort, that having a paper calendar and an electric calendar at work, the kids calendar, a family calendar, all of that time is wasted because we don't have efficiencies, we don't have centralization. Our money is impacted by clutter because we may have a financial hole in our business ship and we don't even know it. And that goes back to the bookkeeping and processes and procedures and looking at our P&Ls and seeing where we might have a cash leak. God forbid that any of you have a bookkeeper that's stealing money from you, but I hate to tell you how many people I actually know that have been embezzled from a bookkeeper, from a CPA, from an accountant. So our money is really impacted when we are so disorganized. We get a P&L from our bookkeeper or we get a bank statement and we're not even sure if it looks accurate. So if you don't keep your books, which I don't recommend you do, you should absolutely keep your finger on the books. So your money can just be flowing out one side, especially because of a few reasons I'm going to share with you now. Some of the major reasons why we waste money in our businesses is a major terrible reason is embezzlement, not being aware what's going on, fraudulent purchases on your account, but you never check your account, so you have no idea. That's not organization. That's just disorganization, not handling it. But duplicate purchases are at an all-time high for business owners. When we go in and organize business offices, we will see, I'd say now 2 to 3 printers is pretty common, and maybe one of them is plugged in. So we call that a duplicate purchase, a waste of money, which impacts your cash flow and your bottom line. So, you went out and bought something as a quick fix, but sometimes outsourcing printing actually would have been better for you. And a lot of our clients have numerous electronics, phones, cords, lots of different staplers, maybe 5 to 6 staplers, Scotch tape, office supplies galore, where it's like, wow, okay, this is really cool. Because once we get our clients organized, we're like, okay, your whole closet here in your office is your office emporium. You can shop from here for quite some time to come. And so that is a waste of money when you have duplicate purchases or just purchasing things that you're never going to use in the first place. I know this might sound weird to some of you, but another impact on our money is repairing and maintaining stuff that we actually never use and that can be easily outsourced. And the biggest thing I see in this department are business owners buying copy machines. Yes, people still buy fax machines. And so unless you're doing massive bulk faxing, that I would call that a waste of money, because a lot of times those kind of machines, copiers and fax machines, they need to be repaired, they need to be fixed, they need to be maintained. And so that's a time waste and a money waste. Paying bills late, there's all kinds of statistics on business owners and non-business owners, how many times they pay their bills late, which racks up late fees and things like that. So that's a big impact on many businesses. Also not making your credit card, making your minimum credit card payments, you are paying so much interest in that, let alone the late fees when you're paying your bills late. A lot of times people say, well, I lost the bill, I couldn't find it, so that's why I didn't pay it. And I believe that most people pay their bills on time, and if they aren't paying them, it's because they set it to the side, it got lost, or it fell down between something. Another way that our money is impacted in business is that we purchase offsite storage for all of our inventory or all of our equipment or all of our things. We've worked with business owners over the years that have downsized their office due to COVID or Great Recession or, you know, whatever is happening, illness, something like that. They downsize, they put everything in a storage area, many times never to go back to that storage area again because they have no idea it was in it. So they make more duplicate purchases. So they have the storage area impacting their bottom line, and then they have the duplicate purchases. And lastly, some people actually convince themselves they need to buy a bigger house instead of getting organized into their office, into an office space in their home. And so that is a huge impact to the bottom line when we actually upsize our living space. Another major impact on our business is the fact that clutter and chaos impact our mental health and our physical health and our safety. So if you go into an office area environment that is super cluttered, you might start feeling fatigue, depression, frustration, embarrassment. There's all kinds of things that happen. And when those things are happening to our mind, it immediately affects our body and our energy. So any of you that have a business out there today, and I know Melissa knows this all too well, that you need a tremendous amount of mental energy and physical energy to run a business. If you have employees or just independent contractors or just yourself. And so that's kind of the doom and gloom part of this presentation, is that there are so many major impacts to disorganization and clutter on your cash flow and your business that I take, you know, a good 15 minutes that I just took to really hit that ball home so that you are listening and can say, okay, maybe there is an area that's being majorly impacted. And those are the 5 areas I'd like you to examine because they're all intertwined. Now, I like to let everybody off the hook and say, there are roadblocks to getting organized, many of them. And a lot of those roadblocks are not in our control and we can't help them. You know, life transitions, COVID, recession, children moving back home, aging parents needing to care for. We all have a tremendous number of roadblocks. Just caring for a household alone can be a major roadblock, but then you have a business that needs cared for as well. So we all are in this together. We all experience roadblocks to getting organized, but I want to focus on some roadblocks that are specifically about business, because the ones I mentioned before are more about life. Here are some business roadblocks that will clog your cash flow 24/7, 365. The first one I like to call is brain clutter. So what does that mean? I talked about information overload. You're on social media too much. You're reading too much. You're getting too educated about certain topics that have nothing to do with your ability to build your business. And so all of that creates brain clutter, which then impacts your ability to close sales and build your business, because you are putting too much stuff in your brain. And that stat that I shared with you was to let you off the hook and say, you know what, maybe you don't need to read 10 books on the topic of fill in the blank. Maybe one is enough. Or maybe just talking to an expert quickly, paying them $200 is enough. That's all the information you need at the time when you need it. Another way that we have brain clutter, I talked about earlier, is we have so much on our plates and so much on our calendars. We literally can't keep up with things, and we try to keep things in our head. This is something I've noticed a lot of my mom clients do that have businesses, is they'll be having conversations and they're like, yeah, I'll be there on, June 15th at so-and-so. Didn't write it down, didn't put it into anything, because at an earlier time in their life, they could remember it. And by the time they got home, they wrote it down in their paper calendar. And so if you're trying to maintain information in your brain and not do a brain dump, that is called brain clutter. We have some great techniques for brain dumping. One way is to brain dump in the morning. As soon as you wake up, get that stuff out of your head. Like, what do you need to do? If you're a kind of person like lately, like me, where I wake up going, I hope I don't forget to do that in the morning, I have to have a little, what I call a Post-it note pad by my bed. It's really little and a little pencil, and it's just so I can go back to sleep without worry. Otherwise I have to get up and go write it down. So I think that's part of aging, but it's important to have systems in place where you can do quick brain dumps so that you don't forget. In addition to information overload, we have a failure to outsource tasks that we actually don't know how to do. So we don't have a skill set for bookkeeping. We're not a social media expert. We've never created a website. I mean, this list goes on and on for us business owners. And we are all understanding what I'm talking about now. Is we say we don't have the money, so we're going to do it all ourselves. That creates so much brain clutter, because the amount of energy that it takes and the space it takes in our brain to try to be a bookkeeper when we're not a bookkeeper is tremendous. And it will completely take away from the energy and the brain space needed to land new clients or new membership or in whatever you need to do with your revenue model. The other thing is that when you fail to outsource and you've got all this brain clutter, some, other bad things start happening that impacts the money. So we have to see how this keeps coming back to money. Some things that happen is you fail to invoice in a timely manner because you've got it all up here. You know it needs to happen, and you're not automated yet. And so you don't have reminders coming up on QuickBooks saying, this invoice hasn't been paid, but you actually haven't created the invoice in the first place. And so that's what we always say with our business owners is just have a bookkeeper come, once a month or once a week, depending on how much business you have, and just work with you side by side. You don't have to give the reins over to somebody, but you can have them help you. And so this brain clutter happens because at night, you have an invoice that person, you need to do it in the morning, and it's a manual process. So you're retyping the same invoices all the time manually again. You don't have the automation. And so when you fail to invoice, obviously that affects your cash flow. And the lack of time in project management systems that we've seen with business owners creates the brain, the final part of the brain clutter is that you don't have a simple, I use Smart Sheets, a project management tool, a very simple tool to track leads that come into your company. Somebody wants to be a member of your site, or somebody wants to join your club or hire you. You might have business cards all over your desk, or a piece of paper, or notes, or you've got voicemails in your phone, but you need a lead tracker. You need to track who has contacted you. Did you contact them back? So this lack of the system supports my initial point that your brain is so cluttered. You're trying to hold a lot of data and a lot of information, and it's just all too much. And so there are such simple, cool ways for tracking leads and inexpensive, nearly free tracking clients and things like that. So in this day and age, it really, it should be easier and easier to build a business because we have so many tools at our fingertips. But then the double-edged sword is we have so many tools at our fingertips. Which one do we use? And I think sometimes just a quick conversation with the business organizer will help clear all that up for you immediately, because they can say, well, it doesn't sound like, Evernote actually is going to work for you guys. So when you talk to somebody who has experience using different platforms and has made organizing their life, it can save you so much time and effort and energy. So another roadblock to your cash flow is brain clutter and now physical clutter. And this is what I specialize in both, creating systems and dealing with papers, because in offices, even in year 2020, we have papers. That's a big part of the physical clutter in offices and in cars. I've organized cars before. We had to create some kind of mobile office system for traveling sales people that have to do that to gain clients or have client appointments and things like that. So from papers to business cards, stuff from trade shows, you can look around our office and start thinking, oh my goodness, there's a lot of stuff here. And that actually is a distractor. Even though you just think that you're not really paying attention to it, over time as our offices fill up, our subconscious is highly and acutely aware of all of the stuff in our office, and it can really be throwing us off. It also, unfortunately, what happens is you can't stand it anymore. So you start going maybe over to a corner of your office and you start organizing. You really don't have a plan in mind, and you really probably should be calling clients and following up with clients and vendors and, doing the things that impact the bottom line the most, which is revenues coming in. The other physical clutter, and a lot of us military women suffer from this. A lot of the physical clutter in our home offices is from our military time, or in our careers, or business awards we've gotten. I've worked with people that have had so many plaques and awards and things like that. And it's like, wow, you've had an amazing career and amazing life. The unfortunate part is there doesn't seem to be any room for you or for any new opportunities, because it's so crowded and cluttered in here with the past. We have some really fun, great ways of preserving all those memories, but maybe not having every single thing up on the wall. In the military, we used to call it I love me wall. and it basically is true. You are in love with yourself. I'm in love with myself when I have my office full of all my accomplishments. So years ago, I took pictures of all my awards, all my plaques and things like that. And the majority of them were recycled or donated to organizations that could reuse them. There's plenty of people that can put a new plaque on an award. And I have the pictures, and I will eventually someday create an actual little printout book. But for now, they're just in my photos. And what I realize is what my office needs is things that motivate me, maybe my vision board, but things that help me track what I'm doing, a whiteboard, a space to move around so I can get up and be on the phone and walk around and around. I notice I'm more productive when I come to sometimes get up and walk around. All these video calls have been so hard on me because I'm used to walking around when I'm talking. So I'm fidgeting a lot. The other things is that we have emotional ties to our stuff. So that physical clutter in our office is impacting us constantly, because sometimes we have 5 to 6 bookshelves full of books, because it defines who we were, it defines our career, it defines the knowledge that we have. And books can be such a hard category because, again, it says a lot about who you are and how educated you are. And I downsize my books by so much. I have a tiny little bookshelf right here. I think I have 20 books, and that was really hard. I have definitely a lot of degrees, a lot of certifications, and I've read a lot of books, a lot of self-help books like for business. And I finally just said, I know what I need to know at this point, and I can let these books go and be a blessing to someone else. If I need to read it again someday, it'll come back to me, or I'll just buy it again or go to Goodwill. So those books are really heavy to move year after year after year. And a lot of clients, when we go and work in their home office or their business office, have boxes and boxes and boxes of books and binders and things that they've never opened from the last 2 or 3 moves. So that's a good indicator that you really don't miss it. So if you have boxes sitting in your office or in your basement or in your garage full of books, you can just give yourself permission to open it, maybe pick out a couple of treasures, and then just move those along to their merry way. Another thing that physical clutter is, we say, but I spent $500 on that copier. I need that copier, but you never use the copier. And so as time goes on, and anybody who's 50 or older kind of knows what I'm talking about in this one, maybe millennials aren't really used to having all this office equipment in their office, like fax machines and copiers in their home office, but I still work with a lot of clients that have it. And so that physical clutter, when you have printers and electronics and things that don't work, that is clutter. And holding on to it because you paid a lot of money for it, and then is the brain clutter. So you've got the physical and the brain clutter circling around you, all taking the energy from your ability to create cash flow. And then the last thing about physical clutter, or next to the last thing, is that a lot of our stuff in our offices remind us of people. So we have pictures of our kids, we have pictures of, we just have pictures of things, our vacations and things like that. And the funny thing is that in a business office, that actually is very distracting from your purpose of the day. And so I don't have any of that stuff in my office because I can walk out to my family room and see all that wonderful stuff. Does that make sense? So make your office space where it is a place where you hunker down and rock and roll. Speaking of that, many of my clients don't have an office space. And that is going to be something we talk about later at the end of this presentation. Other forms of physical clutter in your office: too much office furniture. Sometimes we go and work with the client and the desk is gargantuan, and there's 3 tall file cabinets, all with files from maybe 20 years ago. They're not even sure. So sometimes there's just too much large, big items in our offices. And for we moms, we don't have some chairs, maybe some small chairs in our office. So our teenager or our little one can come sit down in the office and work with us quietly on their computer while we're on ours. So we also have when you work from home and you have kids, you need to create an office space where you can have them come in with you and you can keep an eye on them, if that makes sense, so that we can all be working quietly together and getting things done. Family members have expressed so much frustration with me over time about office environments and how everyone doesn't feel welcome in those environments to be near mom when she's working. And so I'm guilty of that. I had an office way in the basement and I just went down there and I'd be down there for 10 hours. And so we then created a TV watching area near me so that the kids could be near me. And that was something that made me feel better as a mom too. So too much furniture, you don't have time and space to make a great little space for your loved ones to come in and chat with you for a second when they need to talk about something important. The last thing I'm going to talk about is roadblocks. We talked about brain clutter. We talked about physical clutter. We're going to talk about friends and family and newbies. Right? When I say that, some of you may cringe. That how could friends and family and newbies, new business owners, be a roadblock to your organization, a roadblock to your cash flow? Well, a lot of times we hire our friends and families to do things that they say they know how to do, but yet they actually don't know how to do. So sometimes a newbie's like, oh, I know how to do bookkeeping. I did that for my mom, or I did this, but they really don't know enough about bookkeeping and categorization. So cleaning up their mess becomes very expensive. Cleaning up other messes that friends and family make also create brain clutter again. So we see how everything is looped together. Sometimes we have to muster up the courage to fire family and friends from organizing our office or our financials or certain areas of life. And that is a tough decision. But if they are creating more clutter and disorganization, it takes longer to figure out what they've done and longer to fix what they have done, then you don't have the right team assembled to make you successful. It's very painful to fire family members. I fired my husband twice, and we're still married. But it was just the point of, you're distracting me so much from my purpose and my mission with all of the side ideas, with all the other things that were very distracting. So newbies also, you have somebody who says, oh, I'm a social media expert. And they're not. They're just not. And some people put all their time, effort, and energy into thousands of dollars a month on social media and pay-per-click ads. And the people don't know what they're doing. They just know a little bit. They don't know enough about how to create leads and things like that. I am guilty. I have wasted so much money, probably $100,000 over 15 years, hiring people who said they knew how to do something, but they didn't. And I usually hire companies that don't hire just solopreneurs. So what a bummer that is. That will clog your cash flow big time, because you've got money going out. You have no money coming in because you haven't hired the correct people to do the right job. So those are the three roadblocks: brain clutter, physical clutter, and then just friends and family and newbies. Those are big, important ones to be very aware of. Anyone listening today, if you know that your friends or family or the person that you have hired or outsourced is not the right one, you got to do what you got to do and make that decision to let them go. So we've talked about the big, bad, and ugly, the major impacts of disorganization on your business, the major roadblocks to disorganization to your business. And lastly, in our last 20 minutes together, we're going to talk about action steps that you can take to have a more organized home office or business office, wherever you're officing. This even applies to the car. So the number one thing to get your home office or office organized is to stop the incoming. You have to stop the amount of stuff coming into the office before you can take care of what is there already. Meaning, this may sound crazy to some of you, but when you go to a trade show, don't get a bag and start putting everything in the bag. You have got to be fierce about creating an environment in your office that is as clutter-free as possible so that your brain can focus on client generation. So stop the incoming. Don't buy a ton of office supplies because they're on sale. Like I said earlier in our presentation, some people already have an office emporium, and their desire and their need to be organized is so great and so intense that they go to Office Max and they go to Office Depot and Staples, and they see a sale and they buy more and more and more. And so I have many clients that we worked with over the years that had more office supplies than we could ever use to get their office organized. And so that is what I mean by stop the incoming. You stop and think, do you really need this? I jokingly talked about all the duplicates that people have in their office, but I'm very serious when I say I've probably seen 16 staplers in one office, and it wasn't that big of an office. Well, maybe they were in a couple rooms in the house, but 16 is a lot. If you buy a quality one, that's expensive. So stop the incoming. That is a tough step for many of you listening today. It's a tough step for many people in general. Then the next step to getting your office organized and clearing that energy in your office to generate money is to get rid of physical clutter immediately. So one, we're stopping stuff from coming into the house, papers, business cards, we're slowing that down. And second, we're getting rid of everything that we don't need, that it's broken. We should have never bought it in the first place. Still has the tag and ticket on it, software packages, all kinds of things. Just get real about what you are using, what you're going to use. Only you actually know the answer to that. I can't come into your office. No professional organizer or productivity consultant should come and tell you what you're not going to use. Through a collaborative process is when you can determine if you're going to use it. But quite frankly, if you're just honest with yourself about what you need to create cash flow in your business, you will let go of physical clutter, knowing now what you know, that physical clutter is tied to mental clutter, and all of it swirls around us and clogs the dollar signs from coming into our bank accounts. It's just the way it works. So get rid of everything you don't use, need, want, or love in your home office. I'd like to hear some reports from anyone. Reach out to me, Angela at majormom.biz, and let me know any progress you've had on getting rid of things, and hopefully inspired to let go of some books and some items and make room for new energies, new clients coming in. You stop the incoming. You've gotten rid of everything you don't need, want, or love. And now we're finally going to organize your office. This is the most fun, because now we're going to really sit and think and create systems, homes for everything. Well, some people say a place for everything and everything in its place. Homes for everything. Where does the paper live? Where does it get filed? What's my file retention? I mean, all kinds of fun. This is where I get super duper excited, because this is my gift my gift. I know how to create organization, and I know how to create systems that work for the individual that is in their home. So I say the secret weapon to organizing your office is called the Major Mom Method. You can also see that on my website. My other website is majororganizers.com. That's where we have all of our services represented for you. But the Major Mom Method is a 3-phased organized approach to organizing. This is your language, women veterans. You know all about this. You were in the military. You get this. But sometimes we forget that those checklists, ops manuals, sitting down and thinking through a process and writing it down, we forget the value of that. So we keep it all up here. So organizing your mind and the data in your mind is one for surefire way to get a really good start. In other words, you can't duplicate yourself if you don't start writing some stuff down. And also, as we get older, sometimes we forget our processes and procedures that are in place in the first place. So I have an organizing job checklist. I should have had it right here with me, but I will try to grab one really quickly. I have a checklist that I use for every client. It's green, so I can find it. It's green, and it's right here. I didn't plan on showing this today, but I have a checklist, and it's everything I need to do from the time I call the client, from the time I close the client and follow up with the client. And do I know this by heart almost? Yes, I've been doing it for 15 years. But when I have 5 or 6 clients going at once, as I age, I'm starting to forget where I was or what I've done. So this checklist has, all the little things you check off. It's done by the Major Mom method. It's in the order of my methodology. And the other thing I can share with you to kind of prove another point is that I even have a checklist. Me and all my employees use this, is we have a tool guide, a toolkit checklist. And it's like, hey, these are all the things we need in our toolkit. Well, shouldn't we know that? Well, over time, you just forget that. And so we have that. You do a quick glance, just a quick glance like you did in the military with some checklists. When I'm working with the clients, sometimes I'm overwhelmed because they're overwhelmed. I'm being very empathetic and I'm listening. And sometimes I forget the questions that I want to ask. So I have this little, it's not really a checklist, it's just a list of questions. And in my Major Mom method on that, I have that on my clipboard with me at all times. When I show up to my jobs, I have everything I need to make sure I can give the same standard of service to all clients. So what I'm talking about here is organizing the mind, pulling everything out that you do, how you do it, and just making a few things that are duplicatable, because that'll be the easiest way for you to bring on an assistant or bring on an employee, because you have all this stuff documented. I have been hired by people before in the past to come be an assistant for them in their office. And because they're like, oh, you're an organizer. They really wanted a personal assistant. And I said, why don't I help you get organized so that you can hire a personal assistant at a lower rate? Because an organizer rate is much more than a personal assistant, because we're creating systems and we're doing things. So if you want a personal assistant that can help you quickly and efficiently, you need to have systems in place to do that, or have her help you create systems. So the Major Mom method of organizing is, first, get a good picture of what's going on in your office. This is where you take a good hard look. We call it the picture it step. Look around, sit back maybe, and just stare at your office and determine what's going on in that office right now, and what do you want to have going on? What do you want it to look like, feel like? This is where you get a good vision of, okay, I'm getting a good picture of what's happening. And now you're going to get a picture of what do you want your office to look like, feel like, function like. I have 2 chairs. I have 2 kids. So I have 2 chairs. So we've been schooling from home for 3 months. I did some tweaks to my office and have a stand-up desk over there for my son so I can proctor his exams. So life's transitions happen, and it's like, okay, we need to make some adjustments. It's easy to make adjustments in your office when it's not already jam-packed full, okay? So you get a good picture of what you got going on and what you want to have going on. The next step in the Major Mom method is plan it. This is so military. We are so good at this as female veterans, as moms. We can come up with a good plan. I like to call it the action plan and the space plan. We're just talking about the office today. We're not talking about the whole home. If you don't have an office space in your home and you're using the kitchen table and you're using the dining room table, I think I've already mentioned this, family members don't really like that. The 2 times I officed at my downstairs in my dining room during COVID-19, because I was like, I have to get out of my office. I can't take it in here. The kids were like, what the heck? But what are your papers and stuff doing here? This is where we eat. And so they're not used to that. And I thought, okay, yeah, wow, that is not good. I need to take everything and put it away and go back up to my office. But I was sick of being in here. So if you are like me and you want to kind of move around, just put your stuff back into your office when it's time. So you have an action plan and a space plan. The space plan is, where do you want to put the bookcase? Where do you want the file cabinet? I mean, really think hard about how you ergonomically can set up your office. In other words, I'm right-handed. A lot of times people set up all their files, all their pencils and things they grab on the left side, and they're not left-handed. And they don't know why. They just hate their office. But you may not really even realize that you're pulling this file drawer open with your left, and then you're reaching over here to the right. If you had your file drawer on this side where you opened it with your right and then you had it to your right, it may feel better. Everybody's body is different and it moves differently, and we have different flexibilities. So think about that. Even reach and really plan your space. Stop and think. I really can't press this one in hard enough, I don't think, Melissa. So it's like, this is where all the value is when you hire someone to help you, or when we have someone come in and help you think of a plan, space plan. Where is stuff going to go? Then you come up with the action plan. Who's going to move it? Who's going to come help you? I don't ever recommend organizing by yourself. I think it's terrible. So get somebody in to come help you move furniture. It's more fun anyway. If you don't have anyone and you live alone and you're solo in it, get furniture sliders. I absolutely love my furniture sliders. I use them all the time with clients. I use them in my own home. I can easily put the furniture sliders underneath my desk and I can move it around all day long without hurting my back. I can move a filing cabinet around all day long with my furniture sliders. When you get those sliders underneath incredibly heavy furniture, it slides on the carpet like butter. If you have wood floors, they have little fabric covers on them so you don't scratch up the wood floors. Anyway, that is what I'm talking about right now. Action plan. Who's going to do what? I have a sheet called action plan. So sometimes I sketch out, okay, who's doing what on large family jobs or large business jobs and things like that. But when it's just you, sometimes just writing down what you're going to do, not a to-do list, it's an action plan. So it's like, here's the furniture that needs moved, here's what you purchase, here's when I'm going to do it, here's how I'm going to do it. It's a little project management plan. So you've got a good picture of what you want, you've got a good plan, and the next phase in my 3-phase approach is called proceed with steps. Sort, treasure, establish homes and systems, proper containers for things, and start new habits. Now, when I said proper containers for things, that was almost the very last step in the entire 3-phased approach to organizing. So if you're the kind of person that goes out and buys lots of containers and bins and this and that before you even get started, don't be frustrated if you get to the end of the Major Mom method of organizing and you have all these containers and files and things that you know you're not going to use. Just donate them to a local nonprofit or return them if you can get your money back. Don't hold on to things that you know you're not going to use. That is part of the sorting, like with like, treasuring, which means pick out your treasures, pick the things you know you love and you use, establish homes and systems. And I could do an entire webinar, Melissa, on homes and systems for items, but it's so specific for each office that I don't want to give too many general ideas and things. But here are some really important things. Many offices don't have a trash can. I don't know if that's surprising to anyone listening, but it always surprises me. If you're going to make money in your office, you need support systems in place to make the money. They don't have a recycle can. Most states are at, recycle. Almost everyone now these days recycles something in their office, and then they don't have a shred bin. This day and age with information stealing and data stealing, you don't want to put any client information into the recycle bin or the trash can. You need to shred it. And so a lot of times people say, well, I don't know what to recycle, shred, or things like that. I don't know what to keep. I don't know what to get rid of. So, now we're in this treasure step of, I don't know if I need to keep this document and how long I need to keep this document. Anyone who's listening, I will send you for free a document called Paper Management Document. And it tells you what you need to keep forever. It tells you what you need to shred when you're done with it. And it tells you why. So for IRS, all of us are in business. So you need to keep all business documents, bank statements, credit card statements, invoices, receipts, everything for 7 years, period. That's just an IRS requirement. You can keep it in a cute little banker box and put it away. It's really not a big deal. If you're all digital, then create a file for your bank statements and credit card statements that say 2020. Just put it all in there. If you're using QuickBooks, there's other fun ways to do it. But the bottom line is a lot of our clients say, I don't know what to keep, so I just keep everything. And that is valid to clutter, is I don't know what to do with it. So my home paper management, we call it home paper management. The majority of the things on there apply to the business. For example, nonprofits. Here's a horrifying requirement that I hope they change someday. For nonprofits, paper management retention is forever. That just doesn't seem possible. But anybody who doesn't pay taxes have these burdensome paper retention requirements. Lawyers have very burdensome paper retention requirements, medical offices, and maybe your industry does, and that is something you definitely want to be in tune with. You want to know exactly what your industry requirements are, the IRS requirements, and that's, again, now you might be feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to find that all out? Just call me. I have a couple of websites I can share with you that'll get you through it. But when nonprofits hear this, they're like, oh my goodness, you have to keep this forever. So we need to create storage solutions for those nonprofits. Tax returns. Most CPAs tell you to keep your tax return forever. So as we're treasure stepping our papers, okay, here's all these papers. Do I treasure this? I mean, do I keep it? Yes, the tax return itself, you're supposed to keep forever. Don't worry if you haven't kept them, nothing's going to happen. It's just a recommendation. All the supporting documentation for the return, that can be shred. Receipts, bank statements, and that they're saying just that actual 1040, you're going to keep a copy of it, especially when you hear things like fires in buildings and data destroyed, or electronic data, and the IRS sends you a bill for taxes and you say, I already paid that, or you get your social security check one day when we're all old enough and it's it's not nearly what it should be, and you've got your tax return to say, I have paid these taxes. So digital data now in banks and governments, I've come full circle back to the other way, where I keep my paper documents. The ones that I actually have coming to me, I keep those. The ones that are bank statements, things like that, I don't print those out anymore. But that's a decision of treasuring and keeping what counts. There's so many things when you sort your papers with taxes. There's sorting categories. My home paper management will help you sort your papers into categories. Sometimes that's where people get stuck alone, because they have 27 categories across their home office. And really what you can do is just create 4 big categories. You can start off with 4 categories as you're sorting. And it literally can be home, business, family, pets. I mean, and then you just start sorting. It's so easy for our brain to sort into 3 or 4 categories very quickly, and then take that business pile and say, now I'm going to create some real categories, clients, leads, vendors. You can just start creating categories that then end up coming into a file system for easy access. The home papers can go wherever they need to go if you keep them in your office, and the pet in the files and things like that. But a lot of times when we work with clients, they'll come in and say, well, I've already sorted my papers, and I sorted papers for 5 hours and I got stuck, and I still have gargantuan boxes of papers to sort. And usually we can see that it's because they created 27 categories, and that's too hard to do an initial sort on. So you sort and you treasure what steps. You establish homes and systems. You put them in the proper container, meaning don't keep 10 bookshelves in your office if you only need 1, or don't use a bookshelf for your file system if a file cabinet actually would work better. So using the proper containers at this point in the Major Mom method, you actually know what to use because you've used the proper containers. And the last item on the Major Mom system is to start new habits. Sometimes start new habits is every single day. You're done with your office, take a few things, make sure what you need for the next day out. Of course, leave it out if you want to, or have a desktop system where everything is front and center for the next day. File what needs to be filed. Sometimes you can just quickly just put things away that don't need to be out. It's easy to quickly do things and do a 15-minute touch up when you have homes and systems for everything. And that's part of the start new habits. Put things away every day. So with that said, I want to remind you that there are some amazing rewards for having an organized office, some business systems in place that you maintain and keep organized. You save time, you save money, you're healthier, you have more energy, your relationships with your husband and children may actually be better. Your reputation with clients may improve because you're now looking and appearing very organized, and people are like, I trust her. You make room for new opportunities when you're organized, and you let maybe a whole shoebox full of business cards that you never did anything with. Forgive yourself, bless that shoebox, ask God to bring those contacts back to you if you need them, and just let those business cards go. You let the business cards go, you let papers go, magazines, books. When you do that, you make room for all these new wonderful opportunities, clients, equipment, things just come to you, maybe grants, all kinds of things. And last, I think the most important thing is that your cash flow turns back on because you're attracting more business, because you're actually ready. And something happens when you are mentally, physically, and spiritually ready for more clients. You get them. And the best way to get physically, mentally, and spiritually ready for more clients is to have a great business model, of course, and a great business and a great skill to share with the marketplace, but to have an organized office. That is how I have successfully created as much business as I've created over the years and trained employees, because I'm very organized. I am not perfect. I don't have OCD. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm a get it done kind of girl. So it might look sloppy my first round, but I know where everything is. I don't need all of the labels in my desk drawer to be perfectly lined to the left, typed, and things like that. My file system is so old because I've been organized for so long. I know exactly where everything is. Does that make sense? I never spend time making everything look perfect. I spend my time making sure it functions perfectly for me and how I think and how I do things. That isn't about being perfect. It's about creating something that works the best for you. So I thank you for your time. Major Mom salutes you for taking time to organize. And I hope that your cash flow skyrockets this year.
Fantastic. I can relate to so much stuff. And one of the things too, because I would speak at a lot of events or go to events, and it's always a thing where you want to take so much home, and then after a while, I've taken nothing home. So that's, you have to train yourself, and you have to think, because right, it just sits in the bag, and then you have all these squishy things and all these other things, which you ended up, whether you put in the Goodwill bag or the trash. So definitely a lot of great tips for me, and a lot of great, actually more so a lot of great reminders, like, yes, I need to make sure that's done. And then sometimes it is hard to figure out how to outsource or what to outsource. And then once you do, then it's just so much more opens up. And I think that's a lot what you're talking about, is that brain clog that it just clogs it up. But once you can release some of that, and I speak from experience, it does work. It's just figuring out, what do I release and have someone else do for me for the business. So just, if you can, just reiterate what's the best way for someone watching this webinar, how they can get a hold of you.
They can go to majororganizers.com, and they can go to contact us. And when you go to that website, you go to majororganizers.com, contact us. At the very bottom, there's a little button that basically is just to contact me, Major Mom. It says, just want to talk to Major Mom. I think it says something like, just want to reach out. And that's one way. Any button you click on the website and want to get in touch with me will get to me eventually. Even if my assistant gets it first, she'll forward it to me. So you can go to the contact us page. My email address is angela@majormom.biz. My personal brand is still Major Mom, but my company name is Major Organizers. And my cell phone is probably, I will only give that out to people who email me, because then my cell phone is on my signature block. So if you take the time to email me, I'll take the time to send you that paper management document.
Fantastic. I'm sure people are going to be feverishly writing notes as they go through that, and hopefully just make those action items for them to do, because it does work once you start to unclutter. So fantastic, Angela, as always. I truly appreciate you. And
thank you.
You have a majorly, what is your majorly organized day, or what do you say to people?
Yes, have a majorly organized day. I salute you.
I love it. Thank you.
Bye.